Hello, I'm Ted Ellis. I'm an artist. I'm also scholar in residence at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. And I also work as a federal commissioner for 400 years of African American history. We're here, Ground Zero, Emancipation Park, established in 1872. Next year, we'll be celebrating 150 years commemorating freedom, equity. That's what emancipation stands for, being free of political restraints, social restraints, as well as economic restraints. We're still on that journey together. Let me go ahead and give you a little history about myself as an artist. I have been pictorially documenting a narrative on African American history and culture unapologetically for a little bit over 30 years. That's a task at hand that I totally enjoy and relish in. My beginnings began in New Orleans. I remember when I was old enough, I would say probably the age of 12, 13, I would take public transit and I would journey to the French Quarters in Jackson Square. And when I would arrive there, I had a plethora of questions because around the square, you had a whole bunch of artists. And they said, here's this little kid, this little black kid, and I had probably the same size feet. And that was kind of funny because I was short. But, anything I needed to know or wanted to learn about how folks engage people through art and culture, I saw it right there in my birthplace. That's just rich in history and the language of art. That's music, that's dance, that's culinary, that's the visual art. Before my day ended, I would trek over to the public library on Loyola Street. I would check out books. Sometimes I would just sit there and read. I would go through the Britannica Encyclopedia, a World Book Encyclopedia, and put myself in a different place throughout the world just to learn. I was an inquisitive child, student, but I had a tremendous propensity for the arts. And afterwards, I check out my books and I go back home, and if I was motivated enough and got there and not so physically tired, I'd paint at the kitchen table. That was my platform. That's where my easel stood. And I was encouraged by my parents to work at what I loved. Years later, when I graduated from high school, I went to Dillard University. I majored in chemistry. I did well. Afterwards, I worked as an environmental chemist for 8 years. I still had that itch to do my art. And after 8 years working as an environmental chemist, I decided to stop, quit, retire, and pursue my art full time. That's when my journey began as an artist, and it shaped itself over a long period of time. Where I'm currently right now, and very intentional on documenting African American history, culture, and lifestyle. That's part of the fabric of the American story. And that leads me right here to Emancipation Park. And as I said, established in 1872, there's a plethora, a treasure of stories from our point of view that hadn't been told or shared. And I try to do as much research as I can. There are several pieces here that speaks to our history. But we're approaching a very important date. That's June 19th. That's when we celebrate and commemorate freedom for those who were enslaved, particularly African, here in the United States. Now you say 1865. What happened in 1865? That's when Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, with General Order Number 3, Executive Order Number 3, saying cease and desist. Slavery must end right now. That was 2 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 by President Abraham Lincoln. How about that? After 2 years, that tract, the folks in Texas, particularly those who were enslaved, found out that they were free. You had over 19, close to 20,000 colored troops that also was on the track and supported the liberation of those who were enslaved that was in the Union. You had over 200,000 colored troops that fought during the Civil War. That's incredulous. That's how we found freedom. That's part of the story that needs to be shared and told that's missing from history. We have a plethora of wonderful local historians that have done a great job in digging and excavating I would say, historical, cultural anthropologist, Naomi Carrier. If you see her video, you will understand the impact of our struggle, of our resiliency, of our perseverance and triumph through it all. To this day, we still continue to struggle for equity, for freedom, for our rights here in America. So, as an artist, I'm very unapologetically in telling that story. As scholar in residence at Old Dominion University, I've been given a platform for art and social justice. My responsibility is for student engagement, community engagement, and fund development around cultural activities and curriculum that will be sustainable and beneficial to not only those people of color like myself, but for others as well, to understand our significance and our importance and our journey and liberation for democracy, for freedom, for emancipation. I think about when I was reading a placard in the historical marker in Galveston, Texas, and it talked about Emancipation Day and how it was celebrated, in a public way. Then it was privately celebrated throughout the United States. And we continue to celebrate and commemorate that to this day. Now, I think about this piece right here. This is on the auction block, the 15 official slave states that, plus the District of Columbia, that participated in tearing apart the functional family, African family here in the United States. I even have the embedment of the Willie Lynch on how to make a slave, and then the copies of the slave notes to show that it was actual and it transpired. I think about the inclusion of telling stories and having a narrative. This project was sponsored by Walt Disney in it came out in 1999, but it started in 1998. And it's a visual narrative of our contributions through antiquity up until now. And it shows that our children are our future. And so to be mindful that we pass on that oral and written history that's important to sustain us so that we do not lose our identity as we continue to move forward. In this piece, our story, our struggle, our history speaks symbolically of our time right here in America, what we're challenged with. The quilt is our tapestry, our story. And our grandmother, a mother, has been the backbone on holding our family and community together. And she owns her history, she owns her struggle. There's strength in her struggle that one day there's gonna be the opportunity for equal justice under the law. And so this is what I try to do with my art. Now, 1865 and Juneteenth. I think about 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation, but the precursor to that is 1860. That was the Contraband Act. That was when General Benjamin Butler decided to have those 3 enslaved individuals who escaped and found their freedom at Freedom Fortress. That was in Fort Monroe, Point Comfort, Virginia. So there's a tie-in and there's a story that is connected well beyond where we are right now that makes sense. Because when we think about those free color troops and Major General Gordon Granger, coming down through the South, Appomattox, from Richmond, through Charleston, through Louisiana, making its way to Texas, for liberation and freedom, saying cease and desist. Slavery has ended and it's over. That's Juneteenth. Juneteenth is being recognized as major holidays throughout states right now. At some point in time, we should have it recognized as a federal holiday. That's our fight. That's why Miss Opal Lee was here for Memorial Day weekend, along with Miss Juneteenth, to walk 3 miles. Miss Opal Lee, who's 94 years of age from Fort Worth, Texas, have marched from Fort Worth to Washington, D.C. for freedom and equity, to get Juneteenth recognized as a federal holiday. So our journey, our struggle, The act of resiliency in our community continues. And we do it with prayer, we do it with sublimation, we do it with hope, but we also do it with work. And that's part of the reason I'm here, to speak to you about, having the idea with action, the passion with purpose. How do you use your gift to impact others in your journey, in your campaign? So for 30 years as a professional artist, this is what I've been trying to do, to preserve our history and our heritage through art as a creative. So this is my painting, Free at Last, that I created in 2005 at Stringfellow Orchards, owned by Sam and Doris Collins. Now, for the 150th anniversary of Juneteenth, it was the official piece recognized by the city of Galveston with a proclamation from the city. Subsequently, I had the opportunity to journey to the U.S. Capitol on the House and the Senate side to showcase our history. I took 10 important works. I called it my Juneteenth Freedom Project. But this was the painting right here. And if you could see close up, that's the functional family holding their hands together, head bowed in prayer. The Emancipation Proclamation is embedded in the home. He's looking, his head is still held high with tears in eye, hand over heart, broken chain to signify that slavery had ended. You have the matriarch with the future, the child there with the book right there reading. And the quote represents the tapestry of our history continue to be told. And we have the talking drum, how we communicated from plantation to plantation. The strength of our community represented in the oak tree. Our roots run deep through this country. And here you have the Jubilee, the celebration with Frederick Douglass, the great orator, and Harriet Tubman saying, "This way north." And at the very top right here, you have the trilogy of the cross, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And you can't see here, but it's cut off. You have the centaurs, the colored troops, standing vigilant as preserving and protecting the communities. And quietly, if you look at it, you will see the shape of Texas, right there in Galveston, Texas. So a lot of symbolic meaning in this painting called Free at Last. It's currently on exhibit at the Juneteenth Legacy Project at the Strand Building in Galveston, Texas. It will travel with me to Wilmington, Delaware, where the state of Delaware is recognizing Juneteenth this year as an official holiday, as well as the state of Virginia. So that's exciting because I'm, scholar in residence at Old Dominion University. So this is my Free at Last Juneteenth painting, and I'm doing a special one for the city of Delaware in partnership with the library system throughout the state of Delaware. Yeah, I also want to mention that the painting had a chance to showcase at the Bryan Museum. And that's all about Texas history. First time that had ever happened that a painting by a person of color was featured in the museum right there in Galveston, Texas. So, very much excited about that, receiving, multiple citations, recognition for the importance of the preservation of our culture in the painting called Free at Last. So hopefully we'll have it on exhibit here at Emancipation Park for the 150th anniversary when that transpires. Now, we want to talk about the business of art. For 30 years, I have been engaged in taking culture to market. I always say, I'm not so much in the art business, I'm in the culture business, and my culture is priceless. Very early in my career, I wound up receiving this wonderful commission by Walt Disney, and it was featured for Black History Month. It was placard all over the campus in Lake Point Vista, Florida. You saw umbrellas, the posters, the pens. My whole family was invited to come on behalf of Walt Disney. My kids were very young, so they had a chance to see Mickey and Minnie. I had a chance to meet other notable celebrities, Alfred Woodard and Danny Glover, that Walt Disney brought there to show an act of compassion, of sincerity, on celebrating the gifts that African Americans, people of color, have given to the United States of America. And I was the featured artist. So, I always say, I get on my magic carpet, never know where it's going to take me, don't know how it's going to happen. But that was one of my early highlights as an artist, unapologetically, pictorially documenting African American history and culture. And I got paid a substantial amount for that engagement, and it led to other opportunities. I eventually wind up getting a contract with Avon Products, Inc. And over the course of 10 years, we sold over 400,000 prints of my images. My particular image of the baptism, the Ivory Coast 2 Orchestra of Little Angels, Worship in the House. Those were the images that predominantly sold through Avon's distribution throughout the whole United States. How about that? That was something I didn't plan for. But I did think about what it was that I wanted to do. I wanted to have a piece of artwork in everybody's household. And that was part of my mission and my goal at that time. And also to enjoy what I love doing. I was learning about the business, as I continued to create, continue to market, continue to drive throughout the country, doing corporate lunch and learns, doing exhibitions, doing festivals, showcasing at churches. I remember in Douglas Memorial in Baltimore, Maryland, that was my first major church exhibition that I had a chance to speak to my passion and talk about why I thought art was important and what we needed to do in our communities. So I will tell you, very early, you need to get started in your passion lane, find out what it is. And with that gift, it's going to make room for you. It's like a chemical equation. As a chemist, you have two components, A and B, and you look for C. Then more than likely, you're going to get that byproduct D. I didn't expect this opportunity to get a chance to engage the Houston community and those throughout the community to speak about my passion with art, the business of art, to speak about the importance of Juneteenth and how that impacts our communities, the preservation of our history and our culture. I never knew that, but I knew that if I continue to have the kind of passion, that it would continue to give me those opportunities to push it forward. I always try to work my plan my work and work my plan to the best of my ability. Have purpose in my passion. That's every day, even when I'm tired and I'm exhausted. Folks says, how are you able to do all of this? I say, well, I try to keep the fun in what I do, and I think that's critically important. And if I could help others in my passion, it's kind of like, I grew up on comic books and comic strips. And so, being a superhero, I always wanted to be a superhero, Batman, Robin, Black Panther. In a way, sort of kind of like I fashion myself as a living hero. I just do the things that will help others. So if I can help enlighten you about your history, about your culture, to improve your lifestyle, improve your human capital and worth, then that's what I do. And that has helped my business grow and sustain over 30 years. So when I tell you I've had the opportunity to do a plethora of things, exhibitions at schools, at universities, at colleges, showcasing my art. Presently faced with the COVID, I've had a lot of virtual engagements throughout the United States and beyond, abroad the United States. So, never imagined that. When I think about, my first major acquisition by the Amistad Research Center, that's the oldest and largest private archival institution on African American facts and papers in the United States, outside of the Schomburg. So my art is recognized historically. When the DeSable Museum, put 5 of my pieces in their permanent collection, that's the oldest public African American museum in the country. And so didn't plan on that. But I am definitely grateful that those kind of opportunities have happened for me. In the midst of all that, I started saying, where I couldn't sell a major original piece, I said maybe a reproduction or a print. So I started reproducing posters and greeting cards and calendars. I even, published my book. Well, my wife published my book. So you have over 110 images of my work over 25 years in this book that tells and preserves our story. So, there are multiple ways to do the business of art. So listen, this is another form of business. My t-shirt, my Juneteenth t-shirt. So you can license that out, you can publish that out, you could work fundraising opportunities. And I'm doing that right now. I'm actually doing it with an organization in New Jersey. So, you have to look at it. You have to create your business plan, your marketing plan. You got to list your objectives on what you want to get accomplished. And then, look at each one of them in pecking order and start putting the work to make that happen. Before I got to my book, I was doing my catalogs. And my catalogs I started placing into museums. And folks started buying the catalogs. So I said, you know what? I need to work on doing my book. Well, my wife did. And we made it a limited edition book, 150 books, and it's sold out. I think the last book, since it became rare, sold close to about $750 for the book. And I never imagined that. So there's value in our culture. When we talk about the economics of culture and art, here in America, it's an $800 billion industry. It's larger than the construction business in the United States. So there's a plethora, that's one of my favorite words, of opportunities in the art and the cultural realm in the business. Curators, executive directors, docents, archivists, we need those folks, marketers, dealers, gallery owners, academic stalwarts in that space, art historians, all opportunities to take culture to market. And I see it. I've been involved in that space for 30 plus years. So, right here in Houston, we have Texas Southern University, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention Dr. Biggers and Dr. Carol Sims, who created a phenomenal historical platform of treasures centered around the visual arts, ahead of his time. Dr. Elvie Warlord is over there now, a noted art historian and curator who has been groundbreaking in the preservation of African American history and culture. We have Rick Lowe, a MacArthur genius, who started Project Row House right here. I think he's still a professor over at the University of Houston, but Rick has done phenomenal work and continues to do phenomenal work for the past 30 years. So you have a lot of creatives in this space that are doing wonderful things. We are all on our journey together. Mr. Reginald Adams, with all the murals that he's done throughout the city of Houston, and the beautiful mural Absolute Equality in Galveston, Texas, with other creatives on that project. He's done well over 100 murals throughout the world. So when you're talking about the opportunities to do business, it's there. What I have on the horizon is to continue to merchandise my art, with posters, with greeting cards. I'm doing a curriculum-based activity right now around art, culture, and economics. That'll be available for our young creatives at the elementary level, to the intermediate, to the advanced level. I'm excited about that project. I'm currently writing my book. And I look forward to, at some point, to have a documentary done on my 30-year, experience and adventure as a creative and an artist in a space, touching people's lives, to dare to dream, to put the work in, to work constructively, to work toward excellence, to be unapologetic about your passion, to make constructive change. That's part of my mantra, my mission, tied to my vision, every day. As an artist, 30 years have passed and it still seems like it was yesterday. It still seems like it's so much to do. I want to be an open book. I want to be able to make myself available to help you in your passion lane as a young artist. I had influential folks who were artists that paused for a minute. Let me mention Miss Anna Tarragana, who was my junior high school teacher, Mr. Jack, Mr. Williams, all impacted me. Albert Shaw, Othello Beck, Frank Frazier, artists, Othello posthumously is not here, Ms. Anna Tarragana, but Frank Frazier and Albert Shaw are here, and I want to give recognition so that they'll know that I'm very appreciative, because I would not be here. My friend Sam Collins, who's a historian from Hitchcock, and if not for him, I don't think that mural in Galveston would have happened with absolute equality. So what I'm saying is that believe in yourself. Put in the right kinds of preparation that you're targeting for your journey where you want to get to. Know that there's going to be a byproduct that you didn't expect that's going to probably be better than what you planned for, and have fun at it, and own it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Don't be afraid to fall and get up. Don't be afraid to reach out and to ask so that you can learn. That's what we're here for. I have a simple saying that my responsibilities to the youth and to my seniors, and that's my act of service. That is my life act of service. So even when I'm tired, I will make the time to share and to be open. And I think that's how we grow. And as a community, as a village, I mean, that's important. And to share, and to be kind, and to give, and you just see things happen that you never expect. So and I think about that broad brush and the business of art and commerce, and I think how I've engaged corporations, universities, organizations. There's a plethora of ways that you can put yourself in a position that is profitable, with the organizations. That those are fundraising opportunities that you get a chance to present your art, whether those are originals or posters or calendars, to work a wonderful project. Then when you're talking about the universities, typically they have a gallery, or that's an opportunity to speak to the students. Houston Community College, I had a phenomenal exhibition there. It was the precursor to my 400 years of African American history and culture that I received my master's thesis when I received my master's in museum studies from Southern University in New Orleans, a predominantly historically black college and university. With the corporations, I've done the corporate lunch and learns. One Shell Plaza, my whole exhibition downtown Houston, that was up for a whole month for folks who came in internationally to see my artwork. At art festivals, the Bayou City, the Jazz Festival in New Orleans were places where I was able to engage and showcase my art, my originals, my limited edition reproductions, and posters. So which avenue you want to take? I've sort of taken a shotgun approach in my early part of my career. Where I'm at right now is working on programs, sustainable programs with institutions and corporations and foundations, and it's exciting. It's like a new beginning, a different chapter in that level of engagement. As I learn, I want to share, and I told you earlier I'll be writing a book, and I have multiple books that I have in mind that I want to publish. But my first one is about my story and my journey as an artist for the last 30 years, and I'm excited about that. I always try to make the time for the youth, because they're always inquisitive about what they could do early. I remember one artist, right when I was in Norfolk at Old Dominion, we did a workshop with the seniors and with the youth, and the little artist, he had to be about 9 years of age. He said, "I can paint what you paint." And, for a whole 2 hours, he sat right there with me. He was my young apprentice, and we worked on our art together. I enjoy those kind of opportunities. Somebody was there for me early when I started, encouraging me, telling me I was going to be a great artist. Words are so powerful. And so, parents, I like for you to always encourage the students. Teachers, you know that's important, because that gives that student that young child that edge to want to do more, and give them that lane so that they can. I mean, that happened to me very early, and so I hope that could be a motivator moving forward for our youth. So when time prevails, I try to spend as much time as I can working with the youth. Next week, I'll be in Galveston, Texas, with about 10 to 20 young creatives creating artwork relating to Juneteenth, and we're going to take that to the libraries in Delaware and showcase. So those are kind of the projects that I look forward to as our cultural art ambassadors as they exchange between cities and countries. So we're going to stay tuned. So I want to just talk before we all end. I'm always asked questions, and so one of the questions is, when did you know you wanted to be an artist? And I think every artist has that kind of impulse very early. It's when you're sketching and doodling. It's when you find time to learn more about it. It could be through a comic strip or a comic book. It could be a visit to a gallery or to a museum. You just have an interest. And early on, I knew I wanted to be an artist. I didn't know how I was gonna take care of myself as well as my family when I got married. But I decided to learn as much as I can and study about artists and the business of art and the history of art. And I'm still learning. There's multiple major festivals around the country that, that's a business that provides a platform for artists to showcase. I remember early when I walked up and down the French quarters. I had to be probably about 14 looking for a gallery to represent me. And I eventually, after 2 weeks, in that space, I found a gallery that would represent me. They lasted about a year and a half. But early on, I got success. A lot of rejection, but I found success. So when I talk about the act of perseverance, that's so critically important. What would be another question? Recently, it's like, what is it that you want out of art right now? Well, I want to be able to heal hearts, heal communities, and heal people. That's part of my responsibility as scholar in residence at Old Dominion University when we talk about art and social justice, social equity, fighting injustice, using art as a means to have that conversation so that we could heal the ailments that has plagued America. We call it racism. And so I have a wonderful platform and support at Old Dominion University that has 20,000 students, has the largest student body base of African Americans in the state of Virginia. And that university was birthed out of William and Mary, the second oldest academic university outside of Harvard. So a lot of resources, a lot of history. And hopefully with that kind of collaboration and partnership as scholar in residence, we'll be able to build programs that other institutions can use and participate in and get our next generation involved in equity and social justice through the creative process. So that's where I'm at right now. That's what I'm excited about. The other thing is, it's been a 30-year journey. What has been the most important aspect of that? I will tell you, seeing people still respond to the images, the narratives that I've created over such a long period of time. So I've been in that space, doing a pictorial essay of African Americans in religion, African Americans in the legal profession, my Buffalo Soldier series, my Tuskegee Airmen series, my whole exhibition chronicling 400 years of African American history and culture, from slavery to Reconstruction, Jim Crow, civil rights, age of Obama, and right now in our present condition, where as a country, we definitely have felt the pressure of a tri-pandemic, an economic pandemic, racial pandemic, and a health pandemic. And so the call for creatives in that space to heal is so critically important. You know, I think about the Great Depression with the Works in Progress Administration and a role that they played in reviving families and communities through the arts. When I thought about the racial strife that we had in the early 1900s with Birth of a Nation, that horrible film about the degradation of Africans, African Americans, Negroes that were called at that time, that it just defamed and characterized them as less than human. That W. Du Bois and other great thinking minds says that we have to construct a whole new image of the Negro, and a whole new Negro movement started. That was the birth of the Harlem Renaissance and the Chicago Renaissance. And you saw what happened during that time in different spaces throughout the country. I mean, you know, here in Texas, the Colored Carnegie Library, the 1930s, were hosting activities for artists in community to celebrate and commemorate the accomplishments of African Americans. So there's nothing new. History has a sense of repeating itself. But I do know that at the policy level, and policy becomes law, the precursor foundation level is culture. And if we're going to have equity in space, we have to have a total appreciation for everyone's culture. And to convey that is through images and through words. And my job as an artist, as a subject matter expert in pictorially documenting culture and images, that's what I do. And so my passion role, my purpose role is in that lane. And it has given me those kind of opportunities. So for the young creatives, and we talk about the business of art, it has to be tied to passion. It has to be tied to purpose, because that will sustain you. It has for 30 plus years. And during the most tumultuous time of my existence, right now, we're dealing with the pandemics, the tri-pandemics of a health pandemic, an economic pandemic, and a racial pandemic that we're dealing with. The more that we share our spaces, our history, our culture, the better we're going to be as human beings. You know, let's make that investment. Let's make that investment in our communities to have a high appreciation for one's culture. That's what creatives do. They do it in song, they do it in dance, they do it in poetry, and they do it with a visual sense to tell that story. So I think Maslow had it so right at the top of the hierarchy with human needs, what was the arts. You know, critical thinking, creative thinking is one and the same. It always provides a level of enlightenment that nurtures and heals the mind, the spirit, and the soul, and therefore makes us a better person, and we evolve to become better. That's why in every major city of high commerce and trade, there's a major museum. And so that folks can engage, and we've got that piece of it right. You know, as long as we have academic institutions and we have museums that provide a methodology that's formalized and informal so that we can engage, we can enlighten ourselves, we can appease our curiosity, we're going to be able to survive and push it forward. So our academic institutions, our museum institutions, our libraries, and cultural facilities are mandatory for our survivability and being of the highest order of humanity. So, you know, 3 questions, I think that's it. If there are any other questions, you guys can reach me through my Instagram page, T. Ellis Fine Art, or Facebook. If you want to know more about me, there's my Wikipedia page with Ted Ellis. You can see more about me. And my website is tellisfineart.com. This is Ted Ellis. This is Emancipation Park, established 1872 here in our community to be shared, to help inform, to enlighten, to improve our human capital and work. I look forward to participating in future programs. This has been a wonderful opportunity to share my story, to help enlighten others, and to be part of that journey together. Emancipation, Juneteenth, June 19, 1865, presently June 19, 2021. This is Ted Ellis. Peace.